Steven Reid is known for his incredible precision. You might remember his unbelievable 30-yard volley against Wigan in 2005 that fans call the hardest hit goal in Premier League history. But his strength and power extend far beyond the pitch. After nearly 2 decades as a player, Steven began coaching and managing, with spells at Reading, Crystal Palace and Scottish men's national team before helping Nottingham Forest return to the Premier League after 23 years away. However, earlier this summer, Steven decided to step away from top-flight football to retrain as a counsellor. In this episode, we discuss his mental health journey and why he's determined to give players specialist wellbeing support. Reedy, Steven, how are you? That's the first thing.
Very good. Good to see you, Jay.
Yeah, good start to the day. Good trip down.
Yeah, pretty straightforward. You've even come down to London to
accommodate you.
Yeah, to accommodate. No, only joking. No, it's one that I've been looking forward to. Obviously, our relationship, and when I see the message come through, I couldn't wait to get on.
No, I really appreciate that. And some of the things we're going to talk about today, some people might be aware of, but I'd imagine for a lot of people, a lot of it's going to be new to them, and maybe some surprises as well, because everyone's got their own perceptions of who they think we are without actually realising who we are. But the first thing I want to talk to you about, both of our associations with Nottingham Forest, myself as a player and you as a coach, incredible times we've spoken during that period. Incredible run. Obviously, you went from Chrissy Houghton, who we both know and respect very well, and the team was struggling a bit. And then obviously a new manager comes in Steve Cooper, and the team just goes on this upward surge and culminating with promotion, back to the Premier League. So, I mean, fantastic day. I was there, player final. But we spoke towards the end of the season, and then we spoke obviously close season, and then we spoke at the beginning of the season. And amazingly, you made a decision which I would have thought a lot of people would have been surprised by. But, you made a decision. Explain, if you don't mind, how you came to that process and the decision you made, really, around leaving Nottingham Forest.
It's probably something that I've been thinking about for a while. It wasn't a decision that was made after the promotion. It's something that probably I've been thinking about seriously for the whole season, even going back to the end of the previous season. I was kind of thinking about going in a different direction and what I wanted to do. I had a similar experience when I came out of Crystal Palace a few seasons ago, working with Roy Hodgson and Ray Lewington. And I came out then, but without the plan that I've managed to sort of put in place over the last year. So it wasn't a reaction decision. It's something that I thought long and hard about. I know personally we'd almost been having these chats as the season had gone on as well. So you was kind of aware of what was going on in my head, but it's just something I needed to do because I started feeling a passion lying elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, we'd spoken. I remember when you left Palace, and it was one of those moments where people always think, okay, you've left on your own terms, which is refreshing, right? I mean, generally coaches and managers, they leave and it's down to the club making a decision. So I really respected you for doing that. There's very few in this environment that actually take it and kind of put it in their own hands and say, you know what, this is not for me. And at that time, you made a really strong decision. And I was keen, excited to see where you was going to end up next. I wasn't to know that you was going to end up at Forest, but delighted when you did. So, fantastic. Listen, I would imagine not only myself, but everyone associated with the club will be very grateful for what you did in your time there. So, well done there.
No, it was a great club. It's obviously ended on such a high, but there were some real low moments within that as well. Obviously, the year with Chris didn't go how we wanted it to go. For whatever reasons, things just didn't click. It was a difficult time, I think, all round, with no fans being in the stadium, with COVID, with all the issues surrounding that. So, no, I had some real tough times. One of the highlights for me on a personal level was probably taking that game, which was also difficult because Chris had just lost his job. Obviously, Trolls and Nick Hogan had left the club as well. I was put in caretaker charge for that one game up at Huddersfield, actually getting a feel of what management could be like.
Yep.
A lot of it A lot of it I preferred during that week in being in charge of things and sort of knowing all the detail of everything that's going on. Sometimes when you're first team coach, you're picking up bits and pieces, you're kind of being told what to do a little bit. So bits of it I did like, bits of it I didn't like, which was a relentless nature of the few days.
People wanting your time?
Everyone wanting your
interviews.
time, press, relentless amount of press and media commitments.
Spotlight.
You know, you got to leave, you had to leave a few players out just for that one game. You know, Chris, one thing I took away from him, which was amazing, was his ability to just be honest with the players, to treat them with respect. Whether you'd played 10 games or one game, he'd pull you in and tell you the reasons why he's leaving you out the team, which you respect as a player.
Yeah, I think so.
But I knew and I realised in that week that I had the team, even doing it for one game, how tough those moments are. You know, you're so focused on the team and what you need to do for the weekend. It's all the other bits and pieces that are involved that it's just, all I can say is just all consuming.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, people, everyone thinks they can be a manager. And that's interesting as well, that I'd imagine you can answer this question yourself. You're either going to be a coach, assistant or manager. And generally, you know, when we're speaking to players, they I want to be a manager. But it's finding your place within a working environment in a football club. For you, I'd imagine being a number 2 or being a coach was probably the best place for you to be. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think so. Number 1 for me is the people that I'm working with. As soon as there's not that connection for me, or I feel that I'm not in the right place and that I'm working with the right people, that's when I find it difficult, to a point of I'd rather do something else. Yeah. You know, for me, number 1 is the people. Forget the level. If I'm working in League 2 with good people, I'll take that over working in the Premier League with a group that I'm not connecting with. Yeah. And that's the decisions I've made. You know, probably the Reading one was because of that. Found it really difficult at that moment in time and wanted to take a break. But I soon learned over my whole career in coaching that that's my number 1, you know, key factor in where, and who knows, by the way, looking further down the line, there's nothing to say that won't happen again. Coaching, management, but I know for me personally, my decision in the summer was the right one at that time. So
what was tough at Reading when you say, you know, at that time you needed to make that decision? What was? Can you elaborate on that? What was the issue at Reading?
I probably didn't feel part of it. Didn't feel valued in what I was offering, which was quite significant contribution, I'd say. Yeah. Just wasn't enjoying the role at that particular moment in time. Wanted to explore a little bit, because I came straight out of playing and then went straight into coaching. Within 2 or 3 weeks. I was at the training ground at Reading with Steve Clarke, and it was crack on, straight into the coaching world. Didn't have time to think about spending some time away with the family, thinking about what I might want to do, other interests, which we might come to, but didn't have many, and still learning a bit more about myself now, what I enjoy doing. When you're involved in football, that's all you think about. My generation, yours, all you kind of taught and coached to think about is football. Don't concentrate on anything else. Just, you know, just get on with your football. You know,
my generation.
Everything else is a distraction. Even mine. Yeah. So I come away from the game and speaking to people. I remember speaking to a counsellor, and she said to me, give me 10 things that you enjoy doing. And I struggled to reel off 2. Right. Really struggled. So it was always just focus on your football. And after leaving Reading, I thought that could be the time to explore a little bit, take a bit of time out. But then within 3-4 weeks, a couple of phone calls were made and I'm starting at Crystal Palace. But again, with a manager, with a person that I've got a great connection with and get on really well with, in Roy Hodgson. So another great experience. But again, I was straight back on the wheel.
No, that's fair enough. You've spoken previously about dealing with anxiety and imposter syndrome. I mean, being involved in the game, did that make things worse?
1,000,000%. I always had it as a youngster, you know, going back to school days, going back to debut for my youth team, going back to debut for Ireland under-21s, but when you go into professional football and thrown into first team environments, I think that's when it can magnify those worries, anxieties, fears, the pressures, expectations, all of that. You know, the fans, especially at a club like Millwall, that I've got a great connection with, but you know, it can be a difficult place to play as a young player coming through. So I think it's the same for any elite sport as well. You've got to carry them anxieties, but once you feel the pressure of these situations, I think it just pours petrol on that.
Yeah, people don't realise that the change room is sink or swim, isn't it? Let's be honest, it's a ruthless environment. There's only 11 that can play on a match day. You've got to deal with jealousies, bullying at times. There's all sorts that goes on, and you've got to be a strong character. And yeah, people don't understand it's not all, you know, the finished product, just going out on a pitch. It's actually surviving that environment to be able to go and perform on a match day. But you referenced Millwall, and that was, you know, one of the questions I was going to come to. What was it like playing for Millwall? I mean, I'm going to, you know, obviously say my bits and pieces from an away supporter or away fan or away player, but what was it like actually playing for the club?
We was kind of, obviously the club has a reputation, and, you know, it's always...
Warranted or not?
Yeah, from the incidents that have happened in the past, you know, for sure, as many other clubs are. It's funny though, I'm probably more connected to that squad that we had at Millwall. Like the bond between us as a squad is probably stronger than any other that I've sort of gone on to play for. Since then, the WhatsApp group chat, we had great senior pros. We had a group of us young players coming through. Sort of, it was that sink or swim. Club had no money, so me, Tim Cahill, Paul Eiffel, Joe Dolan at the
Good
time.
Players.
Richard
Mick was the manager, right?
Mick was just before.
Okay.
So my first manager was Billy Bonds.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then it was Keith Stevens and Alan McCleary after that, and then Mark McGee when things kind of really took off. But sort of the senior players like protected us. It didn't feel like we was all being thrown in and there was any jealousies from the senior pros that can be. Don't want the young players to do well. I remember after training, Bobby Bowery used to pull me to one side, and we used to just get the ball out and have pinging competitions and get dragged over if one of the players wanted some crosses put in or one of the keepers wanted a bit of finishing.
I went to school with Bobby.
Okay.
Played in the same Sunday teams, school teams. And I got the break before him, and then he came in years later. So small world when you mentioned Bobby Bowery.
He was
mad fit, right? He was one of these guys who was out, like, it wasn't so much cage football in our day. We talk about cage football now, but we would have been out, and he would have been out all the time playing football, like Kelmscott in East London. And if there was anyone that you thought could make it, it would be him. He was quite slight, quite tall. So when he got his break, I was just delighted, man, because out of our school team, there was a few. There was myself, John Goodman. Yeah. Remember John Goodman, striker? Bobby, there was a few others, and you just think, yeah, good for you, because you know he had the talent. Yeah. But I used to speak to him as well. So speaking about the club as well, what I was going to get to was, I knew how difficult it was as an opposing black player to go back and play at Millwall. And I had an opportunity to maybe sign scholar for Millwall. It was Millwall or Charlton. I chose Charlton. But I remember one of the first things that imprinted on my mind was I was watching some first team games for Millwall. And they had Steve Antrobus in the team. Yeah. He was making his debut. You know, black winger, local boy. And I had George Lawrence. Remember George Lawrence, the winger, who was an experienced black man in the team. And I'm sitting in the crowd and I'm watching the game and I'm thinking, you know, this club want to sign me. It was intense. The atmosphere was unbelievable. And it was caged in those days as well. So
at the old den.
Yeah, the old den. And I was listening and I was watching people's faces and the way they was directing racial abuse at these two players. And Steve Antrobus being his debut as well, they just didn't care. And I thought, wow, do I really want to play for this club? Is this how football's going to be going forward? And I was shook, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
I'm like 15 years of age and I'm thinking, And I always spoke to Bus as well, after that. And that did kind of leave a little bit of an imprint on him and obviously left the club and moved on. So, and also when I played at Millwall, there would always be one or two black players in the team and you'd think, are you okay? Because I'm getting dogs abuse today. Do you know what I mean? But how is it for you? Playing for them and the response coming back with, you can explain that. Oh, if I'm doing all right, I'm all right. They look after me. But if you wasn't doing okay, wow, did you feel isolated in that environment? So that's why I asked, what was it like to play for Millwall? Because I always had to kind of ask people, what's it like to play for this club?
Yeah, we was quite lucky because we had a good team. So we had a Wembley appearance, we had a playoffs, then we had a promotion as champions, then we got to the championship playoffs the following season when we bounced up. So I probably never got to see as a player
success.
How bad it could be. Yeah. We had a successful team. We was a group of young players that got thrown in together and the fans actually took to us.
Yeah.
We was doing well for the team.
It
was flying.
It helps.
It helps massively.
Yeah, of course.
I was never really sort of exposed to sitting in the stand and seeing what goes on.
Yeah.
My memory's all about being on the pitch, senior players that wouldn't put up with any rubbish.
Yeah.
They looked after us. They protected us. We had good connections with a senior like Bobby, at that time. When I first came through, Tony Witter was around and Kim Grant.
Kim, I was with him at Charlton. He was a year younger than me at Charlton in the youth team. So they've had, I remember Fash has played for Millwall. They've always had some strong black personalities. And they would have to be.
Yeah, and they kind of would get their arms around us and look after us, black, white. That we was, when I look back, we were genuinely all in it together.
Yeah, yeah. I think you need that as a group of players in there. It's us against them, isn't it? And if you haven't got that, you've got no chance of, succeeding and doing well. So I had to ask that question and you referenced it as well. So it was important for people to understand.
And, I'm not going to be stupid enough to say, there's just because my experience was okay, everything's okay. That's not the case because there's been some, terrible moments over the years and players that have suffered, at the hands of the fans. So there is issues that needs to be done, but I'm also involved in a few bits at the club that I show my face at where behind the scenes, and that's the thing that pisses me off, I guess. You can have a few idiots that can spoil it for the rest that are doing some great work in the community.
So knowing your personality, having known you a number of years, and knowing how you kind of approach things and just listen to you talk, it's no surprise to me really, but you're training to be a counsellor. What brought you to that and what makes you want to do that?
Probably having gone through it myself. I go back quite young. So my first experiences of it was having some counselling, would have been about 16, 17, something like that. My mum worked in a mental health hospital, not as a counsellor, but just worked in there in various different jobs. So she was always aware of the mental health side of things. So having a few issues when I was quite young, she was the best person in the world to talk to about it, really. Got me the support I needed, so went through it. So I've always had an interest in it and know the benefits. And then obviously fast forward a few years when I left Crystal Palace, spoke to the PFA, rung the line, spoke with Benno, who I know anyway, to get some help and do some proper work on myself, really. And as the years have gone on, I've kind of wanted to look into it a little bit more, do the courses, done my level 2. When I had the opportunity, when I was working with Scotland and I had a little window where I could do something else. And that's the bit of coaching that I've kind of enjoyed the most over the years, talking to the players, making sure that they're all right, things away from the game, you know, family all good, settling in, how you feeling, sharing a little bit about my own vulnerabilities as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's been quite powerful in all the roles that I've had in building them relationships with the players. And I just kind of wanted to see where this goes as well, because I didn't want to get another 5-7 years down the line and I'm looking back thinking, what if I had just made that decision and given this a try?
Yeah.
Because I can always go back to the coaching at some stage if the opportunity's right.
Yeah.
But I've kind of been planning this for about a year, talking to people, putting a presentation together, making sure I'm getting enrolled on the course, which started a couple of weeks ago, and just want to give it a go and see where it leads.
No, I mean, you know, you kind of spoke about it a little bit there as well. It's like when somebody asks you, "Are you okay? Are you all right?" They've generally kind of left or moved on before you've even had time to answer that.
Yeah.
So it's just taking that time sometimes to identify and say to somebody, "What's going on, man? How's things with your day?" And they, you know, they may well spill, but they might not. But the fact that you've taken the time out to, I think people appreciate that, especially in a football environment. We know what coaches and managers are like.
Yeah.
And I think we've all been there where if you're injured or if you're not part of the squad, you're no good to them. You know, they could walk past you, like literally walk past you. You're dead to me. I don't know you. You know what I mean? You know where I'm going.
Happens.
In the change room, it can be in the physio room. And you're feeling bad enough as it is. You know what I mean? You're feeling kind of alienated. The last thing you want to do is be injured. You want to be playing. And then you've got the pile-on of maybe feeling a little bit worthless as well. So I think, you know, coaches, managers, I know coaches and there are things that people try to implement, but that's an area that coaches and managers need to do the work. They shouldn't rely upon, all staff shouldn't rely upon the psychologist or the doctor to be identifying people who might need a bit of support. It should be everybody's responsibility, right, to do some basic training, do you know what I mean? Because, as I said, that "are you okay?" people generally don't really mean it when they ask you that, do they? So, no, I think you'll be really good at it. You'll be best placed for it because, you know, having spoken to you, I think one of the things is you come across as being empathetic and you're a listener. You know, I think that's the big part. Some people are good at it, some people are not, but it's just listening.
And the thing with being the coach as well, there is that, still that barrier. There's many times over the years where I kind of can feel that a player's
got something to spill.
Not giving me everything. And I get that. When there's that coach-player relationship, having been a player, you don't know whether that chat that you have is going to affect team selection, contract at the end of the season.
Crazy.
Which can happen, you know. So probably by going down this route, I'm just interested in actually digging a little bit deeper.
Yeah, good.
Because there's only so much a player, I think, will give you.
Yeah.
And I've actually, since I've come out, you know, of the game in the summer, a few of the players that I've worked with have shared a little bit more about what's actually going on. And then looking back and you can sort of think, I can sort of see that more clearly now, why you acted a certain way, why you weren't quite yourself. But yeah, it's going to be a different process. Again, getting used to the course again and all of the Google Classroom and
learning.
All of that. Yeah, learning again. And it's strange and brings up more anxieties and more, can I do it? You know, what you're doing, just get back in football. Yeah. You know, because I kind of think,
but that's the easy decision.
I've had that way of thinking.
That's the easy choice, right, for you to go back to football, isn't it?
Yeah.
So people should respect your bravery in coming out of your comfort zone and pushing yourself and just not making an easy choice, but doing what you think's best for your, you know, your well-being. So I think people should respect that. I think the more times you have to explain it and the more times you do speak about it, more and more people will maybe have a better understanding of where you're coming from. And listen, it's about doing the work, we're all trying to do the work. It's about doing the work and spreading that message and hoping that people pick up on it. But also you speak about, you know, having a good support network. You know, what does that look like for you?
It's tight. I've always had a tight circle. You know, I'm not one although I think I'm really good with people and build them relationships well, my own circle's tight, kind of immediate family, you know, one or two in football that I get an opinion from. You know, within football, again, not got a massive circle of close friends in the game. Obviously, we got loads of acquaintances and people that we speak to, but the circle's tight. Still got the counsellor that I check in when I can feel myself just, you know, I can feel things just getting a little bit, not out of hand, but I've just get this feeling when I know I need to get some stuff off my chest and check in. When I left Palace, it was probably once a week for getting on for a couple of years, you know, that I saw the counsellor. Now it's every few months, might have a check-in just to have a chat, just to, like I say, get some of these feelings that, you know, sometimes you don't want to sort of share them with your closest. You don't want to kind of, I know that it's not burdening them with it, but you just sometimes need that, you know, external person there to just tell them exactly how you feel.
Yeah.
And yeah, just, I guess that's what it looks like. So immediate family, close friends, one or two mentors and counsellor. So a decent amount of support there. And I think you need it. I think in all walks of life, but in particular, elite sport, high pressure environments, you need support. You need people to lean on, or I think it's going to be a struggle.
Do you think, I don't know, I mean, there has been some changes when people ask me about it. I know there's been some changes because there wasn't psychologists and that back in the day, you know, and doctors wasn't really doing anything other than just maybe administering ibuprofen, anti-inflammatories, you know, what we had to live through to get through the games. But do you think players do feel like there's more people they can speak to? I mean, internally, externally, is there, you know, I mean, there's a perception outside, isn't there, from supporters that everything's great, you play football, you earn fortune, so like, what are you complaining about? Like, what's your problem? Do you think players do feel that there's an opportunity for them to maybe talk about it a bit more than ever before?
I actually don't know with this one. I still think there's a reluctance there to share.
Stigma still there?
I think so. To reach out, I think by maybe me doing it in the summer gives one or two the opportunity to relate to my story and pick up the phone, or we have a Zoom catch up or whatever it might be. But I still think it's difficult to, and in particular, I still think within a club to do it, I still think there's a big percentage of players that just won't go and see anyone in the club, don't want to be seen going.
Because word to get back to the manager.
Yeah, the fear of, if I say this, is it going to get back to the manager? Is it going to affect team selection? Is it going to affect a contract at the end of the season? So I've still got not an issue with it. I think clubs that are doing it is great, but I still think there's a lot of players that will just look externally. I think the agents are a big one now. You know, I think at the top level, especially Premier League and probably top end Championship now, where the finance and the contracts and they're well paid, I think they have fixers now that will just go and get, I don't know, someone that's got the most followers on Instagram, or, you know, just look online and see who the best guru or you know, whoever that might be out there, and we just go and get them. Might not necessarily be the right person for that player, but I think the agents have got a big part now in looking after the players that they work with.
Players have their own teams, don't they, basically?
Yeah,
team behind the team.
The entourage.
Wow.
You know, we'll have someone that will organise it. I've had it, which is great. I had an agent that I know really well. He had a couple of players that he felt would really resonate with my story. Could I go and have a meeting with them? Could we have a chat? Yeah. You know, and I still work with them now. So often it's the agents that reach out. But I think the staff as well, having worked on a staff for the last 7 years, the staff need support, need help.
Tell me about it. Yeah.
You know, they're the ones that often not on good pay, security's not there, change a manager, a lot of the staff will be gone, living away from home, sometimes living abroad, looking after the players. You've got to put the mask on because as a coach, you've got to be on top of your game every day. As a player, you can be a miserable,
you can,
whatever, do your work, go home. As a coach, you have to be on it from the minute you get in the door.
Say that, I've played with some miserable coaches.
Yeah,
but I know the point you're getting at, but there have been some miserable coaches. It's like good cop, bad cop with a lot of coaches and managers, isn't it? So
I get, but probably for my own person, that's how I felt that I needed to be.
Yeah, fair enough.
When you get in the office, you still have a moan up, but when you're dealing with the players, you need to make them feel good about themselves.
Yeah.
You need to get them in the best mental and physical state, hopefully, that you can to perform. So I think the staff, and ultimately, if the staff are well equipped, trained, maybe to deal with,
that's what we're talking about. Yeah,
to deal with the players,
having the skill set,
having the skills to notice if there's an issue with a player. Is it the guy working at the gate that notices a player being late a couple of times this week? Is it the chef where he's not eating as well? Is it another member?
It's picking up on those.
It is, and having a sit-down collaboration and talk about this stuff.
Yeah, good points, good points. Do you think discrimination or racism ever affected your well-being?
And it's tough to say. I mean, I've always just given myself the best opportunity of getting to where I want to get to, regardless of, you know, whether I see a glass ceiling there, whether there's opportunity there. I thought, just do stuff right, do it properly, fully prepare, work as hard as you can, get your badges, be a good pro, treat people the right way. And opportunities I've never had the mindset of I'm not going to do something because I'm not sure I'm going to get an opportunity. And for me, personally, doors have opened my whole journey, you know, playing career, you know, even my last couple of years probably at West Brom, where I weren't playing as many games as I would have liked, but because of personality, because of how I did things, I maybe nicked another year at the end. And then within 2 years of finishing playing, Steve Clarke wants me, Roy Hodgson wants me at Crystal Palace, Steve Clarke again at Scotland, a couple of big clubs.
Alex Dyer as well, right?
Alex Dyer.
I mean, I was speaking to both of you and it was incredible. It's like 2 black coaches working at a national level, And if it was, I mean, obviously we got Chrissy Powell with the England set up, but I spoke to yourself and Alex because I was really interested and intrigued to see how you guys was going to deal on the international stage. And so was there no adverse or no, I mean, the results wasn't too bad really.
No, results started off bad. We got off to a bad start, but then things picked up. Confidence grew in the team, changes were made and ended up getting to a, you know, first tournament in 23 years by the time it took place, a big success. But I'm not going to lie, I've still been in environments where I've not felt comfortable, you know, certain boardrooms where I'm going to a game and I'll just go, which I like doing anyway, is going straight to my seat and watching the warm-up, but might poke my head in and think,
sterile, stiff.
Yeah, I'm not sure. That's my own thinking of the situation, but I'll take myself out of certain situations where I don't feel comfortable because I'm the only black face in the room. So yeah, I've had that many times. Not, you know, not abuse or, you know, being looked at a certain way. I just would rather not be in that environment where I don't necessarily feel comfortable. Why
put yourself through it?
But yeah, it's definitely a lot of environments like that in football and boardrooms, that's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, earlier, just going back, I mean, I think I mentioned it as well, not only worrying about your own well-being and how you're perceived, or the abuse you receive as players, but worrying about your family and friends and maybe your partner or your children. I mean, this is a question I've been asked, so this is a question I'll ask you. Do you think it's impacted your partner or your children? And have you spoken to them about it?
About?
Maybe them watching you play, knowing what you're dealing with, dealing with abuse?
Yeah, not really. They've never... The support's always been there, but when the kids were I was out injured for so long when they were babies, so they didn't really get to watch me play much at Blackburn, and then I was commuting down to West Brom from Manchester, so it'd be rare occasions they might come to a game. So yeah, they've not, and yeah, they've probably not really been around it enough to to see it. It's something that I talk about with my son now. Harry's 13.
Is he playing?
He played a little team. I've been roped into,
as you do,
coaching.
You go to watch
his little team, so I'm involved in that, which I'm enjoying. But yeah, they I think now it's kicked on to another level. I got to say that with the social media, I was lucky in the fact that I was coming to the end.
Yeah,
I think over the last since I retired, 7 years, the amount of social media abuse directed at players is ridiculous. Every game, every week now we're seeing it. And, I was probably just out at the right time in that regard, and probably glad in a way. Obviously the age that the kids are at now as well, that we're on social media and seeing it. I've spoken to a few coaches and managers that, are in the game now, and, they're getting abused in the stand, and family is sitting close by. Probably a little bit back in the day when mum and dad might have gone to a game and they're hearing stuff. I imagine what my mum was like in the stand. But they actually kind of kept all of that to themselves as well, which was, I guess, to protect me.
Yeah. I mean, the reason I asked is because, I can remember my mum coming to games, and there were some games I was like, just don't come. When she's telling me what she's having to deal with, whether it be my brother, my children used to tell me about it. Sometimes they didn't want to come. And, when you think about it, you don't realise the pressure they're under, with their school friends and talking about it. And it's only now that my kids are older now that we start to speak about certain situations and instances where I'm like, really? Is that what you had to listen to? I can't imagine, because I was on the other side as a player, you just like, I'm going to play, right? I'm in the centre of the pitch, which is probably the safest place to be as opposed to being on the bench or warming up. But you just kind of focused on the job you got to do. But then to then be worrying about your family, are they actually okay in the stands? And
did you think that if you was having a
sometimes
bad game?
I did, yeah, because I thought, well, I hope they're okay, because the result's not going well. And I can hear the way it's become quite toxic, when the team's not winning. And they do get it. They're sitting there, people look at them like, oh, that's your husband or that's your, do you know what I mean? And it's like, my wife's told me lots of things going back in the day. And I would say she stopped coming to watch me play. She made that conscious decision to stop coming because she just thought, oh, I've got better things to do with my time than have to listen to that rubbish and get caught up in that. And so, as I say, it wasn't just about my own well-being and how am I dealing with it. I had to ask my children and I had to ask my wife, and I don't think people understand what trauma really is, whether it be racial, homophobic, whatever it may be. If you're constantly receiving abuse, imagine by large groups of people as well, in a really toxic environment, we're not designed to deal with that. People assume that athletes should get paid. No human being is designed to just stand there with somebody screaming or pouring abuse at them, just trying to tear them down, dehumanize them. No one's inbuilt to deal with that. So I think that's the point that we have to try and make when we're speaking to people, that we're human beings. Yes, we play football and it's great, but how would you feel if it was your child or your partner? And it ain't until you actually maybe try to explain to them in those terms that they think, yeah, you know what, maybe I got a bit carried away with myself.
especially now, especially with the social media now, because if your kids are at an age where they're on it,
Yeah, terrible.
and they just Google dad's name,
Yeah, of course, it
into
all comes
whatever,
up.
they're gonna have a look at that.
Mm.
You know, they're gonna have the odd just, you know, search up dad's name. Let's see what the fans are saying, or unless they're, you know, real different, strong. Not strong's not the wrong word, but I think most just would out of interest to see what's going on.
Yeah, of course.
And they don't even need to do that now, because someone else will say, oh, have you seen what so-and-so has written or said about your dad?
Yeah,
You know,
you can't get away from it.
You can't get away from it. Even if you're not looking at it, someone will tell you, don't worry about that.
No. Listen, you've spoken about your passion for well-being and what we can do. What would you like to see the game do more to try and enforce or try and help, you know, players? What would you like to see the game do?
I guess it's just the access. And, you know, for me, when you're in football especially, or sport, you need that support. You know, a lot of players, you know, are vulnerable, have got issues going on, don't know where to go with it. You know, at the minute, I've been around to a few clubs and shared a bit about my story, which for me as a player would have been really powerful.
Perfect.
Because the presentation I do is kind of perception of what people think it is and success, but actually the reality of the journey and what was involved in it. And I think sometimes just sharing that for some will be enough, because up until late in my career, I thought I was the only one going through some of this stuff, these experiences, this, you know, anxiety attacks or imposter syndrome. You know, it's only in recent years that I realise loads of us have been through similar issues. So I think it's, you know, being visual like that in at clubs, maybe delivered by someone that's actually been through the experiences and sharing a bit of their story. You know, I've got to say though as well, the PFA have been a massive help to me in my journey, in getting help that I needed at certain times. I think we need to get that out even more.
Yeah.
You know, I've got, listen, there's been many over the years, in recent years, that have come for the PFA, which for me personally, they've been outstanding for me. Help, support, education, coaching badges, well-being. It's there.
Yeah.
But my argument would be, does every player know what services are on offer and the help that they can get? So, but again, I think the players have to take a bit of responsibility for their careers as well. It's not all about can we get help. To the players need to take some responsibility for their own careers. I think now too many just let their agents and managers, entourages deal with everything. You got to take charge of your own career. If you're feeling a certain way, there's so much available if you just dig a little bit deeper.
Steven, you've been wonderful to talk to. You know, I'm sure a lot of people listening to this will benefit from some of your insights and some of your knowledge, and I'm sure the majority of them will want to wish you all the best, as I do. Thank you really for coming in and spending some time with us and being part of the AbsoluteLee podcast, and also, you know, maybe together we can both look for the win. Okay, I want to wish you all the best, my man.
Nice one, Jay.
Excellent. Thank you very much.